Welcome back, and we are continuing our discussion on real estate. And it is both Andrew Leong and myself, Brandon Lau, who are leading the conversation for today's topic. And the last segment, we talked about things regarding real estate service in the pandemic. What are some of the housing trends we're seeing for seniors? And I want to go into our next topic, and that is what are good avenues for investment? So, Andrew, I know you deal with a lot of investors. Tell me what you're seeing in the market right now.
Yeah, so as far as my investor clients, well, first of all, I mean the market is really hot right now, and so there's a lot of competition. Unfortunately, as a buyer, as an investor, but great thing for a seller, right? Because again, this is due to the interest rates. Interest rates are ridiculously low. I mean,
they're about still sub 3%.
Sub 3%. Yeah. And so because of that, it's increasing the buyer's purchasing power, right? And so buyers where they maybe perhaps a year or two ago may not be able to qualify for a certain property because of the dip in the rates. Yeah. Now they are.
Right.
And so it's a great thing in that sense. So for as far as for those investors, they are still looking out there. Obviously, they're not in. My investor clients are not in that boat to be competing with everyone else. But if you be patient, you'll see things that are that would pop up. And I think what's important is, as an investor, it's not what you see face value, right? Maybe it does need work, right? And maybe the other buyer looking at it may not be willing to do all that. So they may see it as, it's too much work, so I'm not, this is not on my radar. So those are some opportunities for investors that, hey, with a little remodel, it could be, something good.
I'm seeing that too. In fact, we have a lot of our inventory in Honolulu built in the 50s and 60s, and we're seeing different changes in these older neighborhoods, primarily with upgrades or expansion. So I do feel there is opportunity for value add type of investments where you buy something, either fix it up or maybe expand it, and the added value does increase the price or the value of your asset, and that's the benefit.
Yeah, definitely. I think today's market for investors, they're looking for that value add.
And another thing too, I think in terms of what they're buying, I know in the market this past month has said that single family homes was almost on track with last year, surprisingly. I mean, even with the pandemic where you feel like you lost 3 months of the year, single family homes has been selling at a rapid pace. Condominiums may be behind by about 15% in the number of sales, so not as active. But it seems like the product of choice is single-family homes. One of the other thoughts on the investment side is the expense component. And so when you look at a comparison between single-family homes or condominiums, in condominiums, a lot of times you have high maintenance fees, right? So a lot of these buildings that were built back in the heyday when the state bird was the crane in the 1960s and 70s, they're all having to undergo the spalling repair, which is concrete repair, maybe drain line replacement issues, which is plumbing, and then maybe elevator modernization. So those big 3 things are contributing to the higher maintenance fees and their assessments. And from an investor standpoint, that may not be as enticing because that cuts down on your income stream.
Yeah, your bottom line. Yeah. No, I agree. And even with today, with the remote working, right? You don't necessarily have to be in town, right? You don't have to necessarily be in the metropolitan area. So you're seeing a big influx of people looking outwards now. So people are, you can look for the homes in the Kapolei area that have that's still a hot market. But even other areas that may be less known, right? Wakefield Gentry is great value, right? So you don't necessarily have to be in town anymore because people can work remotely now. So that's a little benefit.
you can just stream your life on the internet, right? I had somebody call me up about Maili the other day, and they weren't even thinking about that.
Yeah.
You know, so I think you're right.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in line with investments, a good topic for some seniors is understanding legacy planning, and I think we hear about that in terms of maybe your estate planning sessions, or maybe with your financial advisor who dabbles with your stocks and other commodities. But legacy planning is a really big deal in real estate as well, because I think for a lot of people, especially in Hawaii, our house or our family home is one of our biggest assets.
Right.
The question is, well, how are we going to transition that to the next generation?
Mm-hmm.
What are some things that you found in working with seniors in that regard?
Yeah, well, definitely. I think one thing that's gets repeated is, well, don't pass on your property prior to your death, because you don't want them to get hit with the tax
capital
on
gains tax.
the capital gains. And so, you set up your assets in a way where it's in a trust, where that trust is then, you're dictating what you want, right? You're expressing your wishes in there. And so after you pass, the executor can fulfill those wishes. And then, of course, when the property passes on to your kids, it gets there's a step up in basis where those gains get wiped away.
Right.
And so they're not burdened with, oh, I have to pay this tax on this because I've gotten this property now. Now they can use that, use those proceeds and improve their future.
Right.
Some other things that, in fact, I'm actually working with a client. They've built up quite a bit of a nest egg, and they have plans for not just giving it all to the kids, but they have plans to use some of those assets to go towards things that they've been working on, some organizations that they've been helping, right?
Like community-based,
correct,
or
yeah,
nonprofit type
right.
organizations.
So going towards their causes, right? What they want to do, and so you're seeing that trend now. It's not necessarily just everything to the kids,
right?
Yeah, but helping out the community, right? So I think that's a great thing,
Right. Right. Yeah, and I do think real estate is a great way to not just build but preserve wealth.
Right.
So kind of like we were saying a little earlier, having good understanding of the tax code requires you to have a professional like a CPA. And although Andrew and I, we may have seen these scenarios over and over again, we always say, hey, see your tax professional. Exactly. They're the ones who can advise you as the experts. But it is good to find different ways to preserve wealth, because there are either family members or different causes that you want to use your built-up wealth towards, right? Another thing that we've seen as well is, when family members, maybe they have extra investment properties, haven't been lived in a while, and they want to transition that into something else that's more usable for the family, they'll do a 1031 exchange.
Right.
Right. So maybe they had that two-bedroom condo they used to live in, when they're newlyweds. They held on to it for years and years and years. It's paid off. Now they have this appreciation. They're not going to want to live in that condo anymore. But at the same time, they want to know, how can we maximize use of that, that asset? So they may sell that and move that into a different property. Maybe it could be a condo that they would want to move into at some point in time. Do that with the 1031 exchange to defer the capital gains tax, right? Of course, the new property would have the same basis, but the tax would have been deferred. And at some point, after using that as an investment, if they chose to, they could maybe move into that property. So I think understanding the tax code and working with your CPA or tax professional and your realtor, of course, is really going to help you preserve and maximize your real estate wealth.
Speaking of the 1031, I'm sure you've had your experience of, parents, right? using the 1031 exchange to help their kids,
Right.
Right. Eventually helping, preparing their kids to, maybe eventually take over that property, right? So it may not be something that the kids would move in immediately, but in the future.
Right. I like it when our clients say, "Well, we want one property for each of our kids." I love those types of clients. They're so generous. But it is something to consider, especially if I can say, because of the appreciated real estate values in Hawaii, it's not the easiest for the younger generation to own property. And I think of that for my kids. So even though my kids are, in elementary and high school, I'm thinking, well, geez, in the next 20 years, I wonder if they'll be able to live in Hawaii.
Right.
So I'm having to think of ways, okay, how am I going to, use my accumulated equity in our property to help them buy something?
Right.
And it might be using financing like maybe a HELOC, help them with down payment while keeping our property. Yeah, I think we definitely need to strategize with professionals to find the best way to help the next generation.
Right. That's true. But I think, maybe not just looking for their property, but maybe they want to advance their education. Like you said, a HELOC is a great way to pay for those tuitions too.
Yeah. With the asset, your house as a collateral, right?
Yep.
Well, Andrew, that's been really fun. Turns out we're out of time, but if anyone wants to find out more information about different ways that they can preserve or build their wealth through real estate, please feel free to contact us at Chaney Brooks Choice Advisors, 753-9033. And coming up next, we have our Kapuna Wiki Classic Trivia. I want to thank you if you participated in last week's trivia, and the answer was, the life of the land is perpetuated in righteousness. Now, for this week's Kapuna Wiki Trivia, which is brought to you by Chaney Brooks Choice Advisors, we have Andrew who's going to present it.
The hang loose sign, or shaka sign, was made popular on the north shore of Oahu in Laie. It was a unique greeting representing a famous leader who lost 3 fingers from his right hand in an industrial accident. When he waved at somebody, it looked like the hang loose sign. What is the name of this local leader?
For a chance to win a Leong's gift card, be the first person to call us with the correct answer at 808-792-5188. Again, we'd like to thank this segment sponsor, Chaney Brooks Choice Advisors, for providing you the best real estate information so that you can make the most informed decisions. As they like to say, real estate is about choice. To contact them, call 808-753-9033. Thanks for joining us today on the Kapuna Wiki Radio Show, Hawaii's senior resource. We strive to make sure our seniors are informed and supported every step of the way. Again, I'm Brandon.
And I'm Andrew.
And we'll see you back next time on the Kapuna Wiki Radio Show.